I was 8 the first time someone told me I couldn't sing. It was the school talent show auditions. I'd been practicing Somewhere Over the Rainbow for weeks, singing into a hairbrush in front of my bedroom mirror while my mom clapped along. But when I opened my mouth in front of the auditorium judges, 3 teachers and a student volunteer, I saw the smirk. It came from Kyle Benson, a 5th grader with perfect hair and the confidence of a game show host. He was on the student council and apparently had been helping with auditions all week. The second I hit the high note, he snorted loud enough for everyone to hear. "Wow," he said, leaning toward the kid next to him. "That was something." The teachers didn't correct him. They just thanked me politely and wrote something down on their clipboards. I didn't get in. That night, I told Mom I was fine. I wasn't. I went into my room, shut the door, and didn't sing for months. Fast forward to high school, and the story hadn't changed. I had learned to avoid situations where my voice might be exposed. In choir class, I mouthed the words. At birthday parties, I pretended to save my voice when the cake came out. Anytime music was involved, I became invisible. Except to one person, Megan Cole. She was everything I wasn't: loud, fearless, and the lead singer in our school's rock band. Megan had a voice that could rip the paint off the walls in the best way. She also had a mean streak. I didn't know how it started, but somewhere in sophomore year, I became her favorite punchline. She'd mimic me in the hallway, fake gasping for breath like I was some out-of-tune American Idol reject. Sometimes she'd gather her friends in the cafeteria and hum a cracked version of Happy Birthday, just to make them laugh. One day, I made the mistake of staying late after class to help the music teacher, Mr. Harris, organize sheet music. Megan walked in. "Oh, what's this?" she said in a syrupy voice. "Our very own songbird? Sing something for us, sweetheart." I kept stacking papers, hoping she'd get bored. She didn't. She leaned against the piano and started tapping a rhythm on the keys. "Come on, just one note. I'll even play it for you," she teased. When I didn't respond, she laughed, loud and sharp. "Guess the blender's out of order today." Mr. Harris said nothing. And that was the moment I decided I'd had enough. I didn't start by singing. I started by listening. If Megan wanted to own the stage, I was going to own the shadows. I began sitting in on every after-school band rehearsal, pretending I was just there to help with sound, when really I was studying her, the way she moved, the way she breathed before a note, the way she scanned the audience like she was pulling them in by a string. At night, I went home and did the same things, but without an audience. I sang into my pillow. I recorded my voice on my phone, wincing at the playback, and then doing it again. And again. And again. I didn't want to just sound better. I wanted to sound like someone who could make a room go silent. By the time senior year rolled around, there was an announcement that changed everything. The school was hosting a statewide talent showcase. Unlike the talent shows of the past, this one was open to the public. Scouts from local recording studios and performing arts colleges would be there. Megan's name was the first on the sign-up sheet. Mine was the last. When Megan saw it, she laughed so hard she had to hold onto her locker. "Oh, this is going to be good," she said, her voice dripping with mockery. "I'll make sure to save a seat for your mom in the front row. She's gonna need a drink." The whispers started immediately. People didn't ask what I was singing, just whether I'd actually show up. And for a while, I wasn't sure I would. The night before the showcase, I sat in my room staring at the simple black dress I'd picked out. My mom knocked softly and came in holding a steaming mug of chamomile tea. "You don't have to do this if you're not ready," she said gently. I took a sip and stared into the steam. "That's the thing, Mom. I am ready. I've been ready for years. I just didn't believe it." She smiled in that way only moms can, like she already saw the ending I couldn't. The day of the showcase, my stomach was in knots. Backstage, I could hear Megan set. She was good. No, she was great. The crowd roared after her last song, and she walked off grinning, tossing me a wink like she'd already claimed the trophy. "You're up," the stage manager said. My legs felt like they were moving through wet cement as I stepped into the blinding light. The audience was a blur, but I could feel every eye on me. I took a deep breath. And then I sang. It wasn't perfect. My voice trembled on the first line. My palms were slick with sweat. But something happened after the second verse. I stopped thinking about Megan. I stopped thinking about Kyle Benson. I stopped thinking about every time someone told me I wasn't good enough. I just told the truth. By the time I reached the final note, the room was silent, not because they were bored, but because they were holding their breath. And then the applause hit me like a wave. Megan was in the wings, her smile gone. I didn't need to say anything. The look on her face told me everything I needed to know. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the girl with the broken glass voice. I felt like the girl who could bring the house down. The applause was still echoing in my ears when I walked off stage. My knees were trembling, but my chest felt like it was expanding with every breath. I passed Megan in the wings. She didn't smile, didn't congratulate me, just looked me up and down with a cold, calculating expression before turning away. I almost laughed. For years, she'd been the loudest voice in the room. Now she didn't have any words. As soon as I stepped into the hallway, I was swarmed. Strangers, actual strangers, wanted to shake my hand. A couple of them said they worked with music industry contacts and asked if I'd ever considered recording. I didn't know if they were serious or just being polite, but I didn't care. For the first time, people weren't looking at me with pity or mockery. They were looking at me like I was somebody. Mom met me backstage, tears in her eyes. She didn't say, "I told you so." She didn't have to. We hugged, so tight I thought my ribs might crack. When the showcase ended, Megan was announced as second place. I was first. The trophy was cheap plastic, but it felt like gold in my hands. I knew, though, that the real prize wasn't the award. It was the fact that Megan Cole had just lost to the girl with the blender voice. That should have been enough. It wasn't, because the next Monday, Megan made sure everyone knew she didn't care about losing. She went around telling people the judges felt sorry for me, and that's why I'd won. "She's not even that good," she said loudly in the cafeteria. "I mean, she's better than she was, but come on, you can't fix a voice like that overnight." The old me would have crumbled. The new me? I just smiled. Because while Megan was still playing the high school queen bee, I'd already started making plans to step into a much bigger world. 2 days after the showcase, I got an email from one of the people I'd met backstage. Her name was Emily Vargas, and she ran a small performing arts nonprofit that held open mic nights at a downtown venue. She invited me to come sing. No pressure, no competition, just a room full of people who love music. It sounded terrifying. And perfect. When I showed up that Friday night, the place was packed. It wasn't fancy. Exposed brick walls, mismatched chairs, string lights hanging from the ceiling, but it had a pulse, an energy I could feel in my bones. The crowd was warm. They clapped along. And when I hit the big note at the end, they stood up and cheered. Not politely, like they meant it. Afterward, Emily hugged me and said, "You belong on a bigger stage." That's when the idea started forming. For years, Megan's voice had been everywhere, school events, local fairs, even the regional radio contest she bragged about nonstop. She wasn't just a singer, she was the singer. But what if, instead of trying to outshine her in the same places, I brought the stage somewhere she couldn't follow? By spring, I was performing at every open mic and community event I could find. My voice got stronger, my stage presence sharper. I wasn't a scared kid anymore. I was becoming someone people recognized on sight. The whispers at school started to change. "That's her, right? The one from downtown. I saw her on Instagram. She's actually good." Megan noticed. Oh, she noticed. At first, she pretended not to care. But when one of her friends posted a video of me singing at a street festival, and it got more likes than Megan's latest performance clip, she went quiet. And quiet wasn't her style. One afternoon, I was leaving the music room when I found Megan leaning against the doorway. "You've been busy," she said, her tone flat. "I have," I replied. "You know this is my territory, right?" I laughed softly. "Your territory? Megan, there's a whole world outside these halls. You can keep the school stage." "I'm aiming higher." Something flickered in her eyes, not fear exactly, but the awareness that I wasn't playing the same game anymore. Then came the opportunity one couldn't resist. Emily's nonprofit was hosting a summer benefit concert in the city's largest outdoor venue, a real stage, with professional sound, lights, and an audience in the thousands. She asked me to headline. It wasn't just about singing anymore. This was my chance to plant my flag in a place Megan couldn't touch. The weeks leading up to the concert were brutal. I rehearsed every day, worked with a vocal coach, even started light cardio to build stamina. My mom helped me sew a performance outfit, a deep emerald green dress that shimmered under the light, paired with black boots that made me feel 10 feet tall. I kept the whole thing quiet at school. The fewer people who knew, the better. I wanted the moment to hit like a thunderclap. The day of the concert, the air buzzed with anticipation. The crowd was massive. Families on picnic blankets, teenagers leaning against the barricades, couples holding hands under the twilight sky. When I stepped onto the stage and looked out at all those faces, I felt something I'd never felt before: total belonging. I sang my heart out. Every note was a declaration, every breath a reminder that I had earned this. The crowd moved with me, their energy feeding mine. By the final song, people were waving their phone lights in the air. When I hit the last note, the roar was deafening. Backstage afterward, Emily handed me a bouquet and whispered, "Look." I turned and saw Megan in the crowd. She wasn't clapping. She was just standing there, frozen, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. That's when I knew the revenge wasn't just in winning. It was in living so far beyond her reach that she couldn't even figure out how to catch up. That summer changed everything. I started getting invitations to sing at weddings, charity events, even a local TV morning show. My social media following exploded. And while Megan kept performing at the same school talent nights and small-town fairs, I was building something real, something she couldn't tear down with a snide comment or a fake laugh. I didn't need to humiliate her publicly. My existence on that bigger stage was enough. But as it turned out, fate had one final encore planned for us both. By the time senior year ended, I had more gigs than weekends. It was surreal. I'd spent years hiding my voice, and now strangers were booking me months in advance. Megan and I barely crossed paths that summer. If we did, she acted like we were polite acquaintances instead of longtime rivals. I thought maybe she'd moved on. I was wrong. It was late August when Emily called me. "Hey," she said, her voice unusually hesitant. "You might want to sit down." I flopped onto my bed. "What's going on?" "You know the City Arts Festival?" "Of course," I said. It was the biggest event of the year, a sprawling weekend of food trucks, street performers, and live music across multiple stages. They just added a collaboration slot for Saturday night. 2 featured performers will share the stage for a duet. "That's great," I said. "Who's playing?" There was a pause. "You, and Megan Cole." At first, I thought she was joking. Then I realized Emily wasn't laughing. Apparently, Megan had also been building a name for herself outside school, singing with a different local group. The festival committee thought pairing 2 hometown talents would draw a huge crowd. They weren't wrong. When the announcement hit social media, the post blew up. People tagged me in the comments. "Can't wait for the drama. This is going to be spicy. Team Harper or Team Megan, place your bets." I told Emily I'd think about it. Then I sat in my room for an hour staring at my phone, my stomach twisted in knots. This was either going to be a disaster or the perfect chance to show Megan and everyone else just how far I'd come. Rehearsals were tense. The festival director picked a classic rock ballad with powerful harmonies, something neither of us could completely dominate. Megan was all fake smiles during introductions, but the moment we started singing, the competition was electric. She tried to overpower me on the high notes. I matched her. She leaned into the mic to steal focus. I stepped forward too. After one particularly heated run-through, the music director clapped his hands. "Ladies, this is supposed to be a collaboration, not a cage fight." Megan smirked. "Oh, I'm just bringing my best. Wouldn't want Harper to get lost in the background." I smiled sweetly. "Don't worry, Megan. I'm hard to miss." The day of the festival, the city was alive with color. Booths lined the streets, kids ran between food stands, and music from other stages drifted through the warm summer air. Our slot was at 8 p.m., prime time. The crowd in front of our stage was massive, easily a few thousand people. Backstage, Megan was pacing in a shimmering silver dress, her hair perfectly curled. I wore a fitted black jumpsuit with a gold belt. My hair swept up so my face was fully visible. Under the stage lights, it made me look taller, sharper. When the MC introduced us, the crowd erupted. The music started. At first, we sang in unison, our voices blending. But the moment the first solo line came, Megan threw herself into it with all the drama she could muster. The crowd cheered. Then it was my turn. I didn't push. I didn't try to scream over her. I just sang clean, strong, and true. My voice cut through the summer night air like it belonged there. I saw heads in the crowd turn toward me. Phones went up, recording. Megan noticed. Halfway through, we hit the key change, the part where both voices soared together. She tried to belt louder, but the harmony forced her to stay in balance. That's when I realized the revenge wasn't just about singing better. It was about making the audience feel. I closed my eyes for a second, let the emotion fill my voice, and gave everything I had to that final chorus. When I opened them again, the front row was swaying, people's faces lit by the glow of the stage. The last note rang out. Silence. And then, an explosion of applause so loud it felt like the ground shook. We bowed together. Megan's smile looked plastered on. Backstage, she pulled me aside. "You've gotten better," she said stiffly. "Thanks," I replied. "You haven't changed a bit." Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't respond. She didn't have to. I could see it in her face. She knew she'd been matched, maybe even outshined, and in front of the biggest crowd of our lives. What I didn't know at the time was that the performance had been live-streamed by the festival, and clips were already going viral. By the time I got home, my phone was blowing up. People were sharing side-by-side videos, debating who had won the duet. Hashtags with our names were trending locally. The overwhelming consensus? I wasn't the girl with the blender voice anymore. I was the one to watch. That night, lying in bed with my phone buzzing on the nightstand, I realized something important. Revenge wasn't about destroying someone else's spotlight. It was about building a light so bright that no one could ignore you, even the people who wanted you to disappear. Megan had given me my first reason to fight for my voice. Now, without even meaning to, she'd just helped broadcast it to thousands more. And I was just getting started. 2 days after the festival, I woke up to my phone vibrating like it was having a seizure. At first, I thought it was a glitch, but no. Notifications filled my lock screen. Tagged posts, new followers, comments from people I didn't know. One message caught my eye. "Loved your performance. We'd love to feature you on our show. KZNT Morning Live." I read it 3 times. KZNT Morning Live wasn't just a local program. It was the morning show for our whole region, broadcast to hundreds of thousands of viewers. I called Emily immediately. "Did you see this?" She laughed. "Of course. You think they'd pass up the girl who made a city arts festival crowd cry? Call them back. This is big." By the time I got to the studio a week later, my nerves were buzzing. The set looked even brighter and more intimidating in person. Cameras everywhere, producers with headsets, people moving in quick, practiced chaos. They mic'd me up and gave me the plan, a quick interview about my journey followed by a live performance. When the host asked about the festival duet, I kept it professional. "It was an honor to share the stage with another talented singer," I said, keeping Megan's name out of my mouth. The last thing I was going to do was feed the drama. Then they rolled into my song. The second I started singing, the studio quieted. I could feel the energy shift, that same hush I'd felt at the showcase, the one that told me people were actually listening. When the last note faded, the applause wasn't just polite, it was genuine. After the segment aired, things snowballed. My social media doubled in followers overnight. Venues that had ignored my emails before were now reaching out to me. But the biggest surprise came from an unexpected place, an email from an indie record label in the city. They'd seen the performance and wanted to meet. When I told Mom, she just about dropped her coffee mug. A record label? Harper, this is huge. I know, I said, trying not to smile too hard. But I'm not signing anything yet. I want to hear them out, see if it feels right. And honestly, I wanted Megan to see it. Not to rub it in her face directly, but to let her watch from the sidelines as I stepped into a world she couldn't gatekeep. The meeting was surreal. Their office smelled like coffee and leather, the walls lined with gold and platinum records from artists I'd grown up listening to. The A&R rep, a woman named Selena, leaned across the table. We think you have something special. Raw, but compelling. The kind of voice that sticks with people. We'd like to develop an EP with you. An EP. My own music, professionally produced. I didn't even realize I was gripping the arm of my chair until my fingers started to cramp. I said yes. The next 3 months were a blur of writing sessions, studio time, and endless cups of coffee. I worked with musicians who'd toured internationally, producers who could turn a half-formed melody into something cinematic. The first track we finished was a slow, aching ballad about finding your voice after being silenced. It wasn't about Megan directly, but every word carried the weight of years of mockery, doubt, and the decision to stand anyway. When Selena heard the final mix, she smiled. This is going to turn heads. We planned the EP release for spring, with a launch concert at one of the city's most iconic venues, the Grand Aria Theater. The moment I saw the place, my stomach flipped. Tall marble columns, velvet curtains, a stage that had hosted legends. It was nothing like the cramped school auditorium where Megan had first humiliated me. This time, I wasn't walking on stage to prove I belonged. I was walking on stage because I did. 2 weeks before the concert, the marketing team suggested something bold. Let's put your face and name on the side of the Grand Aria, Selena said. Full banner. People driving by will know who's headlining before they even check the lineup. I nearly choked on my water. Like a billboard? Exactly like a billboard, she grinned. The day it went up, I drove by twice just to see it again. My name, huge, bold letters. My photo, mid-performance, eyes closed, mouth open, lost in the music. It was the kind of thing Megan would have killed for. And here it was, mine. I didn't have to wait long for her to notice. 3 days later, I got a DM from an old classmate, a blurry photo of Megan walking past the Grand Aria banner, her expression caught somewhere between disbelief and rage. No caption. None needed. The night of the concert, the theater was packed. From backstage, I could hear the hum of the crowd, see the glow of phone screens in the dark. Emily was there. My mom was in the front row. Even some of the musicians from my early open mic days had come. And then, as I peeked from the curtain, I saw her. Megan, sitting halfway back, arms crossed, her face unreadable. I didn't let it throw me. When the lights came up, I stepped into them with my whole chest forward, the emerald dress from my first big concert shimmering under the stage glow. Song after song, I poured myself into the music. Between tracks, I told the audience pieces of my story, not about Megan specifically, but about doubt, about voices that get lost in the noise, about fighting to be heard. And they listened. Every word, every note. By the final song, I could feel the lump in my throat. This one, I said softly into the mic, is for anyone who was ever told they weren't enough. May you find your stage and take their breath away. I sang like I was singing to my younger self, the girl clutching a hairbrush in her bedroom, afraid to open her mouth. When the last note faded, the room erupted. People were on their feet, clapping, shouting, whistling. I looked out into the crowd one last time, and caught Megan on her feet too, clapping slowly. Our eyes met. She didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. Afterward, I stepped outside into the cool night air, the marquee above me still lit with my name. Selena hugged me. Emily cheered. Mom cried. For the first time in my life, I didn't just feel like I'd won. I felt free. Megan's voice might have shaped my fears, but it would never shape my future. The morning after the Grand Aria concert, I woke up to headlines. Local singer brings down the house at Grand Aria. From high school talent show to main stage, Harper's rise. The voice you'll never forget. It didn't feel real. I sat at the kitchen table in my pajamas, scrolling through article after article. Every review mentioned the emotional weight of the final song. Every one of them called my voice captivating, or haunting, or effortlessly commanding. And then my phone buzzed. The name on the screen made my stomach drop. Megan Cole. For a second, I considered ignoring it, but curiosity won. Hello. Her voice was flat, almost cautious.
Hey.
It's Megan. Yeah, I gathered. I saw the show last night, she said after a pause. You were good. I waited. Actually, she admitted. You were better than good. I didn't expect that. I could hear the faint edge of reluctance, like it hurt her to say the words. Thanks, I replied evenly. Means a lot. There was another pause. Listen, I'm organizing a benefit show next month for the local animal shelter. We're short on headliners. Thought maybe you'd want to perform. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. The Megan I'd known in high school would have rather swallowed nails than share a stage with me voluntarily. Why me? I finally asked. Her laugh was short and humorless. Because you'll draw a crowd. And because maybe I was wrong about you. I could have said no. A part of me wanted to say no, to let her sit in the discomfort of asking me for help after years of tearing me down. But another part of me, the one that had learned the power of standing in the light, thought differently. All right, I said. I'll do it. The weeks leading up to the benefit show felt strange. Megan and I texted back and forth about set lists and schedules, our messages clipped but civil. I could tell she was trying, awkwardly, to bridge a gap she'd spent years widening. The night of the event, the venue was cozy but packed. String lights glowed over the stage, and a row of tables held silent auction items for the shelter. I arrived early, dressed in a simple navy wrap dress, hair loose in soft waves. Megan was already there in a sleek burgundy jumpsuit, greeting volunteers. She spotted me and offered a small nod. We were both scheduled for solo sets, then a duet to close the night. When I took the stage for my set, I chose a mix of originals and covers, songs that told the story of finding your voice and holding it steady. The audience was warm, clapping along, smiling. Megan's set was strong too. She still had that powerful belt, that magnetic stage presence. Watching her, I remembered why she'd been so intimidating all those years ago. Then it was time for the duet. We'd chosen a stripped-down acoustic version of Hallelujah. The first verse was mine, soft and measured. The second was hers, rich and soaring. And when we came together on the chorus, something unexpected happened. Our voices didn't clash. They blended. It wasn't a battle. It was harmony. For the first time, I felt no undercurrent of competition, just two voices meeting in the middle, lifting each other. When the song ended, the audience stood and applauded. I glanced at Megan, and she was smiling, not the tight, polite smile from before, but a real one. Afterward, she found me near the coffee station. You were incredible, she said simply. So were you, I replied. She hesitated, then added, I know I was awful to you in school. I can't take that back, but I want you to know I respect you now. You've earned everything you've got. Her words landed heavier than I expected. I'd imagined this moment for years, but I thought it would feel like victory. Instead, it felt like closure. We didn't become best friends after that, but we didn't go back to being enemies either. In the months that followed, we crossed paths at events, exchanged polite hellos, even shared a stage once or twice. The tension was gone, replaced by a kind of mutual acknowledgement. We'd both fought our own battles, and maybe, in some small way, we'd helped shape each other. The EP release went better than I could have dreamed. The first single started getting radio play, and a few months later, I was invited to open for a touring artist on their regional stops. Standing on those bigger stages, I sometimes thought about the scared 16-year-old who couldn't sing in front of a class without hearing Megan's mocking laugh in her head. That girl was gone. In her place stood someone who had learned the most important truth. Your voice is yours. No one else gets to define it or silence it. That benefit show with Megan was the last time I ever sang Hallelujah in public. Not because I didn't love the song, but because it marked the moment I stopped singing against someone and started singing for myself. And that was worth more than any revenge could ever be. 6 months after the benefit show with Megan, I was on the road. Not in a beat-up van like I'd imagined when I used to dream about touring, but in a modest but comfortable bus provided by the headliner I was opening for, a folk-pop singer named Leighton Ross whose voice could melt glaciers. We were hitting mid-sized theaters and outdoor festivals across 3 states. Every night, I sang to hundreds, sometimes thousands, of faces I'd never seen before, and yet, in every crowd, I'd find someone mouthing along to my lyrics. The first time that happened, I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from crying mid-song. Back home, things had shifted in ways I didn't fully realize until one weekend in late spring. Leighton had a gap in her schedule, and our manager suggested we fill it with a solo homecoming concert for me, a chance to play my music in the place where it all started. The venue they booked? The brand new Civic Center. Capacity, 3,000. It was the kind of stage my high school self would have laughed at the idea of ever standing on. When the posters went up around town, I noticed something funny. People I hadn't spoken to since high school started popping up in my inbox. Hey, remember me? We sat next to each other in math. Congrats on everything. We should totally hang out before your show. And then, 2 days later, an email from the Civic Center's PR team landed in my inbox with a confirmed list of invited guests they'd arranged for the VIP section. Half the names were strangers. The other half? My old teachers, some classmates, and I had to blink twice. The school principal who once told me, "Not everyone is meant for the spotlight, Harper. Maybe focus on a backup plan." I could have ignored the list. Could have smiled politely and treated it like business as usual. But something in me, the part that had fought for every stage I'd stood on, knew this was a moment that needed to be intentional. So I asked the PR team for one addition to the VIP list. The person who had been the loudest voice in telling me I'd never make it, Mr. Clayton, my high school choir director. Mr. Clayton wasn't cruel in the obvious ways. He didn't shout, didn't call me names. He just made it clear, in 100 subtle comments, that my voice didn't fit his idea of good. Maybe just mouth along in this section, Harper. You're a little too loud for this piece. Let's have Megan take the lead. We need voices that blend, not stand out. I hadn't seen him since graduation. And now, he'd be sitting a few rows from the front while I sang my own music in my own voice. The night of the concert, the Civic Center was buzzing. From backstage, I could hear the crowd filling every seat, the low hum of conversation and anticipation. Emily was there. My mom was glowing. Selena from the label was pacing with a headset, checking every detail. And when I peeked through the curtain, I saw them. The VIP section. My old principal. My teachers. Some classmates. And, right in the middle, Mr. Clayton, wearing the same neatly pressed button-downs he used to wear to choir rehearsals. He looked older. Smaller somehow. But his expression was the same unreadable mask I remembered. The show started like any other. A burst of applause as I walked out, the heat of the lights on my face, the first chord ringing out. I kept the set tight, a mix of the songs that had carried me here and a few new ones the crowd hadn't heard yet. And then, 3/4 of the way through, I paused. This next song, I said into the mic, is for the people who told me my voice was too loud, too wrong, too different to belong. Turns out, different is exactly what I needed to be. A murmur rippled through the audience. I saw a few heads turn toward the VIP section. I didn't look directly at him, but I knew Mr. Clayton was hearing every word. The song, Stand Alone, wasn't about him specifically, but it carried the echoes of every time I'd been told to shrink, to blend, to stay small. The chorus soared. I won't fade into the choir. I won't trade my voice for quiet. If it shakes the walls, let it shake. If it breaks the mold, let it break. When the final note faded, there was a beat of silence, and then the room erupted. I spotted Mr. Clayton in the second row. He was clapping. Slowly, deliberately. And unless I imagined it, there was the faintest flicker of something in his eyes. Maybe regret. After the show, during the meet and greet, he approached me. "Harper," he said, his voice quieter than I remembered. "I was wrong
About you.
About your voice. I let the silence stretch for a beat. I know, I said simply. He nodded once, like he'd been expecting that answer, then stepped aside for the next person in line. It didn't feel like revenge, not exactly. It felt like reclaiming a chapter of my life and rewriting the ending. Because the truth was, I didn't need his approval anymore. But seeing him forced to face what I'd become, that was a gift I didn't know I wanted until it happened. That night, after the last photo was taken and the last autograph signed, I stepped out into the quiet parking lot. The marquee above the Civic Center was still glowing. Harper, live tonight. Sold out. The girl who once couldn't get a solo in the school choir had just filled a 3,000-seat venue. And this time, no one could tell me to sing quietly. 3 months after the homecoming concert, I got the call. It was Selena, and her voice was almost shaking with excitement. Harper, you've been invited to perform at the National Music Awards. I froze. The National Music Awards? The one that's broadcast live. The one with 20 million viewers, she said. They want you in the Rising Star segment, a solo performance, prime time slot. It's the biggest stage you've ever been on. I sat down on my couch, heart pounding. Selena, are you sure they didn't mean to call someone else? They saw your grand aria concert online, she said firmly. They meant to call you. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Wardrobe fittings. Media interviews. Endless rehearsals. I'd sung in big venues before, but this was different. This was the kind of stage that could launch a career into the stratosphere. Emily flew in to help me with styling. This is the night, she said, zipping up the garment bag. The night people stop calling you a rising star and just call you a star. We chose a floor-length black gown with a subtle train and a neckline that caught the light without being flashy. My hair was pulled into a sleek, low bun. Under the stage lights, it felt like armor. The morning of the awards, I barely ate. My stomach was too tight with nerves. Backstage at the arena, I could feel the bass from the opening act thumping through the floor. Celebrities and industry legends moved around like it was nothing, chatting in sequins and tuxedos. When the stage manager finally said, "Harper, you're on in 5, my mouth went dry. I closed my eyes and took a breath. Somewhere in the crowd were millions of people who'd never heard of me before tonight. And somewhere else, maybe in a living room, maybe at a watch party, were people who had heard of me and once said I'd never be good enough. The lights dimmed. The announcer's voice echoed through the arena. Please welcome, Harper. A single spotlight hit the stage as I stepped forward. The song I chose was one I'd written just for this, Unshaken. It was stripped back, just me and a grand piano, no big production to hide behind. Every lyric was a piece of my journey, every note a reminder of what it had taken to get here. Halfway through, the audience went so still it felt like we were all holding the same breath. And then, as I hit the bridge, I let everything out, the years of doubt, the voice that had been mocked, the determination that had carried me through. When the final note faded, there was a second of pure silence, and then the arena exploded in applause. As I walked off stage, my hands were trembling, but not from fear, from something bigger. Selena met me in the wings, grinning so wide it looked painful. You owned that stage, she said, and you just made about 20 million new fans. Later, in the green room, my phone was blowing up, messages from friends, strangers, even old classmates. And then I saw one that made me stop. It was from an unknown number, but the message was short. You took my breath away. Megan. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. We'd said everything that mattered already, on stages big and small. In the weeks that followed, Unshaken was streamed millions of times. Offers for tours, collaborations, and appearances poured in. But one invitation stood out above the rest, an offer to return to the City Arts Festival, the same place where Megan and I had once battled it out in front of our hometown. Only this time, they didn't want me to share the stage. They wanted me to headline. Standing on that same festival stage months later, looking out at a sea of faces, I thought about how far I'd come. I thought about the scared 16-year-old who couldn't sing in class without trembling, about the nights I practiced in my bedroom with the door locked, about the moments I almost gave it all up because one voice told me I wasn't worth hearing. And then I thought about this. The roar of the crowd, the warmth of the lights, the way my voice now reached people I'd never met. I stepped up to the mic. This song, I told them, is for anyone who's ever been told to stay quiet. May you find your stage, and may you take their breath away. And as the first chord rang out, I knew. I hadn't just found my voice. I'd claimed it. And no one could take it from me again. That was the real victory. Not the awards. Not the tours. Not even the billboards. It was the freedom of knowing I'd built a life where my voice, the very thing they mocked, had become my power. And that power? It was never going to be silenced again.